Denny's life wasn't defined by his job as a race car driver. It was something deeper, etched in the quiet loyalty of his dog, Enzo, who, even in his old stiff-boned silence, watched everything with a soul far too human for his four-legged body. The story doesn't begin with a race or a finish line. It begins with the slow pant of a dying dog, lying on a worn rug in a Seattle apartment, waiting for his master to come home. Enzo knows his time is near, but he's not afraid, because he's lived, and more than that, he's learned. It all started when Denny, young and reckless with passion, walked into the animal shelter on a whim and walked out with Enzo. The pup wasn't anything special by anyone else's standards, but Denny saw something. Maybe it was the intelligence in his eyes, maybe the calm curiosity that didn't bark or whine. Enzo would say, if he could, that it was fate. That dogs don't pick owners by accident. Denny wasn't just a racer, he was an artist behind the wheel. He didn't just drive, he felt the road, danced with the rain. Enzo lay nearby, observing, absorbing. Denny would talk to him like a friend, not a pet, telling him that racing wasn't about speed, it was about patience, control, knowing when to hold the line and when to let go. Then Eve arrived like summer light through a cloudy window. Enzo didn't like her at first. She smelled wrong. She came into the apartment and made space for herself on the couch, in the bed, in Denny's arms. But she laughed in a way that made Denny smile wider. Slowly, Enzo understood. She wasn't a threat. She was part of the pack. And when Zoe was born, he knew their world had shifted forever. Denny, Eve, Zoe, and Enzo, it was messy and beautiful, loud and soft. But storms don't always give warnings. One day, Eve touched the side of her head, her smile flickering. Enzo noticed first. She smelled different. Office-like sickness wrapped in sweetness. Denny didn't see it. Not at first. He was busy with races, chasing sponsors, balancing life. But Enzo felt the sickness grow in Eve like a shadow under the skin. Doctors came. Words were whispered. Glioblastoma. Terminal. Everything changed. Eve went home to her parents, the wealthy, controlling Swifts, taking Zoe with her. Denny visited every weekend, but his presence was like a pebble tossed into a hurricane. Trina and Maxwell Swift didn't trust him. He was a racer, not a father in their eyes. Unstable, broke, irresponsible. Enzo watched them smile with their teeth and glare with their eyes. He growled sometimes, but Denny would shush him. Eve was fading, and every time Denny held Zoe in his arms, he looked like a man gripping the edge of a cliff, desperate to hold on. Then the unimaginable happened. Eve died. The funeral was a silent war. Enzo watched as Denny stood still, stoic, while the Swifts hovered like vultures in tailored suits. After the service, they asked for custody of Zoe, said they could provide stability, a home. Denny refused. That night, he held Enzo close and whispered, "I won't lose her too, but grief is heavy and people are cruel." The Swifts didn't wait. They filed for custody, alleging Denny wasn't fit. Then came the real blow, a fabricated accusation. A family friend's teenage daughter, manipulated by the Swifts, claimed Denny had touched her inappropriately. A lie so vile it cracked something inside him. The police came. Handcuffs, courtrooms, legal bills he couldn't pay. Sponsorships vanished. Races slipped away like water through fingers. Enzo saw the worst in people. He watched his master unravel and rebuild again and again. Nights when Denny cried silently, days when he smiled for Zoe, pretending. Enzo never looked away. He never left his side. Through it all, there were small mercies. Denny's friend and lawyer, Mark, stood by him, stubborn and relentless. So did a quiet group of racing fans who remembered the fire in Denny's driving. But most importantly, Zoe never wavered. To her, Denny wasn't just her father. He was home. The trial dragged for years. Every court date chipped away at Denny's hope, but he clung to Zoe like a man clinging to light in a tunnel. Enzo, old and slower now, still curled up near the door when Denny left, and wagged his tail faintly when he returned. He didn't need to run anymore. Watching was enough. Eventually, truth cracked through. The girl confessed. The Swifts were exposed. The charges were dropped. Custody was returned. But Denny wasn't the same man. He was exhausted, worn thin. Yet when he stepped into a car again, on a real racetrack, something lit up. Like thunder waking a sleeping giant. He raced again, not to win, but to breathe. Years later on a track in Italy, a young boy waited by the pit. His father, an up-and-coming racer, introduced him to an American racing legend. Denny Swift. The boy, barely 10, shook Denny's hand firmly, looked him in the eye and said, "My name is Enzo." Denny's heart stopped for a moment. Something in the boy's gaze felt ancient, familiar. A flicker of a tail, a silent watch from the corner of the room, a bark held back with reverence. Denny knelt down and smiled. And just like that, everything made sense.